My name is Tom Rand. I work on the management team at Walker ClimateCare here in Cornwall, a local HVAC firm. I'm going to spend some time setting the stage and talking to you a little bit about heat pump technology, and hopefully I'll be able to answer more questions than we have you ask, but I will be around for Q&A. Gabby, if you're ready for the first slide, and we'll go straight into the next one. I'm going to put a couple of numbers up here, and then we'll see what those they represent. So the first one, if you didn't guess it, 40% represents the amount of energy that most Canadian homeowners are spending relative to HVAC needs in their home. So it's a pretty significant amount. We'll throw up another number, Gabby. It's 42%. I know you're all muted. I'd love this to be a little bit more interactive, but hopefully it gets you thinking. And what that number represents, if we'll click, it's going to show you, is the amount of Canadian households with central air conditioning as at the end of 2021. And I'll add a quick note here that this number spiked dramatically during that period, thanks to some incredible hot weather that happened out west in British Columbia. I'm sure a lot of people read about that in the news. And it doesn't include anything that's non-central air conditioning, but it is certainly, it's not quite a majority of people, but it's certainly a significant portion of the population. All right, our next number up there, $320. Hopefully the dollar sign gave it away. We've certainly spoken about this topic extensively this afternoon. So if it'll reveal that number is what an average Canadian household is spending on utility bills in Ontario. And that's everything. So that could be with Enbridge, that could be with Cornwall Electric, et cetera. And that's an aggregate number just averaged across the province in this case. Next number coming up, a little bit harder to guess. It's very specific. It's 12.39. The number represents the amount of cents that people are paying at present in federal carbon tax, and that's measured in cents per meter cubed. And the last number, it's a multiplier, it's 2.6x, and that number represents the growth in that federal carbon tax as outlined by the federal government to 2030. So it's not so much a projection or a guess or an estimate about where this is going to go. These are all tabled numbers. These are factual numbers. You can verify them on the Canada website for Natural Resources Canada, where they have grids showing exactly what the federal carbon tax is going to be on marketable natural gas or oil if you're heating that way, and what those numbers look like from today all the way until 2030. So what we're seeing here from an opportunity perspective is that, lots of energy that folks are using is dedicated to heating and cooling. We're seeing that almost everybody is participating in that. It's costing them a good amount of money every month, and that number is set to continue to incline just based on federal carbon tax alone, not to mention volatility in utility costs and general inflation. So we know that there is a very large demand, and certainly your presence here today speaks to the fact that people want to be able to save money and make eco-conscious decisions that they feel good about. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll present a potential solution. And we're proposing that could be heat pumps. So there are 4 primary reasons that we believe that this is an optimal solution to this dilemma. So firstly, heat pumps are incredibly energy efficient. And one of the key reasons that heat pumps are more efficient at heating spaces, particularly versus traditional heating methods, is that they're not actually creating heat. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive and maybe a little bit implausible, but at a very, very high level, what's happening is when you have an electric furnace or a gas-fired furnace, and I'll use those examples because they're very commonplace and I think people understand them better, you are actually generating heat. So you're using an electric heater element or you're burning a fossil fuel, and that is directly creating heat that is then circulated throughout your home or through that space. A heat pump works differently. It's not actually generating heat, it's transferring heat. So there's an outdoor unit and an indoor unit that work in tandem, and I'll explain a little bit about the technology behind that shortly, to transfer the heat indoors or outdoors. And that creates the net effect of either warming the space in your house or cooling it by transferring the heat outside. The second benefit that you'll see come up on the screen is that this technology is very, very versatile. So for those of us who have centrally ducted homes or homes with ductwork, registers, and vents that you're used to seeing on the floors or on the ceilings, this is an absolutely great technology for it. If you don't have that, it's no problem. You can absolutely still participate in heat pump technology applications for space heating and cooling through their ductless technologies, and I'll show you those products in just a second. The third key benefit is that it's compatible with two different sources. And one of those is air source. This is the most common, particularly in residential applications in cities like the city of Cornwall, but they are also compatible with ground source applications. And those are systems commonly referred to as geothermal. We'll touch on that for just a second momentarily. And lastly, a fourth key benefit is that it's something that you can do that's retro-compatible with your home. So if you have a very standard home with a gas-fired furnace right now and a central air conditioner, adding a heat pump can be a great way to increase your energy efficiency, and you don't have to replace everything in your home. Simple upgrades will be able to allow you to take advantage of this technology. It works with your existing ductwork. We'll go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works. So heat pumps, a lot of people feel, particularly in North America, that this is a very new technology. That is in fact not true. They're over a century and a half old, and were first used to be able to dry salt over 150 years ago as that was being mined in Austria. If you click, Gabby, you're going to see that there was initially a little bit I don't want to say resistance, but certainly not as much uptake as we would have loved on heat pump technology, and that was primarily driven by the accessibility of other heating sources. So coal was very inexpensive to heat with during its day. Natural gas has been notoriously inexpensive as well. So the availability of options to heat that were inexpensive meant that people were not willing to invest in the higher upfront costs of heat pumps. So the technology didn't take up quite as quickly as we would have liked. So if we click, we're going to see that something has changed recently. And if you click again, you're going to see the two primary things that have changed. So mostly it's technology. Compressor technologies today far outpaces the compressor technology that existed when this technology was first introduced. So rather than having just on and off, you've got modulating compressors that are far more efficient and therefore able to use much less electricity to achieve the same net effect. There's this note at the bottom just mentioning that as of 2021, about 10% of space heating needs globally were powered by heat pumps. That number since then has been growing at a furious double-digit pace, and compounding, we're seeing heat pumps make a really big change in this environment. Lastly, we're going to talk about why doing that now. And there's a couple of different pieces there. One is it's going to help you save on utility costs. We talk about the rise in carbon tax, so it can save you there. And again, it can save you money directly based on electricity prices, and we have our partner from Cornwall Electric here to speak to that piece as well. The last piece I'll speak to, and I think Jessica spoke to it very well with the HER Plus program, is that through Natural Resources Canada, the Greener Homes Grant Program is offering you a huge rebate. It's a $7,100 rebate towards heat pumps if you meet their eligibility criteria, which are quite flexible. So there's a massive financial incentive upfront to invest in this technology today and start saving. So we'll move to the next slide. So how does this heat pump work? Basically, in cooling mode, it works exactly like your air conditioner does today. There's a coil on top of your furnace, it's hidden to you. There's the compressor motor that you see outside. The key is that the heat pump also heats, and it has a reversing valve, and that allows it to essentially flip into the opposite operation. So we talked about how the heat pump transfers heat from indoors and outdoors to create that net effect. It's the reversing valve that's enabling that, and it changes the role of the compressor coil and the evaporator coil. So it's using that technology. If we click, Gabrielle, you'll see a quick image here. The diagram is going to show you a little bit about how that works. So you've probably all seen heat pumps, even if you didn't know it, just driving by them. Some of the telltale signs, it's never going to be on a patio stone like an air conditioner is. It's going to be mounted up on a stand, sometimes on rails attached to the side of a building, and that's to allow liquid discharge to get out in the winter so that it doesn't ice dam. But this is what's happening on the inside from a technological perspective. If we click to the next slide, you'll see that there are a couple different types of heat pump systems. The first is central. That is an ASHP, or an air source heat pump. This is a very, very common technology, 100% powered through clean electricity. And in some cases, you can have a heater pack there to make sure that it keeps up with demand on the coldest days. Or if you're somebody who really needs that temperature to change on a dime, you're very particular about home comfort, this can be an excellent solution for you. The next one is ductless. We mentioned for those who don't have ductwork in their home, obviously it's an incredible renovation to be able to add that. So the ductless heat pump can have a single or multiple zones of heating and cooling and achieve the same net effect and garner you that energy efficiency that you're looking for. The next piece is a geothermal solution, or a GSHP, a ground source heat pump. This is primarily used in rural areas because it requires a good amount of land to be able to create an open or a closed loop. But basically, you're using the energy, the thermal energy that's stored in the earth, whether it's warm or cold based on the season, transferring that through water and then converting that into the air that pumps through the ventilation system in your home. The last one is a hybrid system. This is very, very popular and a relatively new technology here, where you can use an air source heat pump to do the primary heating, but it's backed up by your gas-fired furnace. So you don't need to get rid of your gas-fired furnace right away. If you'd like to hang on to it because it's it's comfortable, it's familiar to you, perhaps it's very new and already very efficient, you can still take advantage of heat pump technology by pairing them together in what we call a hybrid solution using dual fuel. And that's it for me. I'll be around with the other panelists for questions. Thanks so much.